Hello and welcome back to what is now episode 3 of the Social Jar podcast. My name is Dan Wiseman. I'm your host as always, and I'm joined by Ryan Long and Andreas Georgiou. How are we, guys?
Yeah, not bad.
All good. Really well, thank you.
Good news. So we record these podcasts at quite inconvenient times because yet again, this goes out. We're recording this before England play Denmark tomorrow night, and it will go out after we've played Denmark. So yet again, I'm very happy if we've reached the final. If not, I think we all will share the sadness, won't we?
Another semi-final.
Yeah, I know. But hopefully not. Hopefully this is coming to you guys with a Sunday to look forward to. But this week, guys, the format, we're moving away from Euro 2020. The format's going to be a little bit different. I've been doing some extra homework this week. So instead of you guys bringing me your own individual topics from the Social Jar, I'm going to provide all 3 this week. So you guys, I know, you guys can have a little bit of a week off. I've briefed you guys on some topics. I think we've got some really interesting stuff to discuss here this week. But there's going to be a kind of overseeing theme to all 3 topics. And that is the copycat nature of social media, which is going to be our first real topic. In that social media recently has really become an industry that, Anchor Digital actually branded it the death of creativity, like that's currently sort of submerging in the industry at the moment. And that's trends are not just taking place on social media, but the actual social media platforms themselves are noticing sort of features that are becoming popular and then bringing it to their own platform. I mean, we've seen it with stories that came from Snapchat to Instagram, now to Fleets. We've seen it with TikTok, whereby it seems like every major social media platform now has their own has their TikTok alternative, be it Reels or Spotlight or Shorts. It's happening now with Clubhouse, where we've got Clubhouse becoming Twitter Spaces. Facebook have now got audio rooms launching themselves. And guys, it poses a question really. I mean, is this a good thing for the social media industry as a whole? It's a really interesting debate whereby we seem to be heading down this path. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point. And the death of, what was it you said?
The death of creativity.
Yeah, the death of creativity.
Strong, but is it?
Very strong term. But it does have a point, essentially, because everything you just listed there, Dan, is spot on and accurate. And it has become a point with social media now where platforms are copying each other blatantly. It's not even oh yeah, this is a cool feature we're rolling out, this is a little bit different. It's, oh, you like TikToks? Yeah, we got TikToks now. Yeah, why don't you come over here? And the biggest problem now, I think, obviously social media pages in general or platforms are the most downloaded applications on mobile web stores, some of the most used websites in the world. So every single different social platform is competing with another to gain that market percentage. And the way to look at it is, hey, look, if people really like TikTok, what can we do as a platform to make those fans come over here and enjoy our platform? And without being creative, as you're saying, the easiest answer to that is, why don't we just copy them over there and put that on our platform so that more people are inclined to join us? And I think, yeah, it's just really getting out of hand, actually. It's actually quite frustrating as well, because from a social media perspective, from what we do as a company, which is, marketing and content creation, it's meaning that before, where we could go to clients and say, do this strategically differently on this platform versus this platform. Now it's kind of like, oh, we want this and we want to post it across the board. And whereas before you could have said, actually, it doesn't make sense because this platform prefers this type of content, or you can better utilize over here. Now it's kind of like, well, yeah, I can post a 1080 by 1920 vertical video on any platform now. It doesn't matter. Versus before you could only, Snapchat was the originator of that, and then Instagram stories and so on and so forth before we got TikTok, and now that's rolled out across other platforms. So I think it certainly is a problem that I don't know if there's going to be a solution to it anytime soon either.
I mean, I don't think we can sit here and pretend like this hasn't been happening for a very long time. I mean, not on quite as large a scale, but if you go back to say the heart reacts, which was, I think when Instagram first launched, when you like something, it was shaped as a heart. Everyone else gave you the thumbs up icon. And now that sort of heart react is seen across the board. We've seen it with live streaming. I think Twitter were the first to sort of go into that industry with Periscope, and then sort of Facebook and Instagram. And now pretty much every social media platform gives you the ability to live stream. And I think platforms just fear becoming an MSN Messenger or a MySpace or a Bebo, where they just sort of fall out of relevance and slowly. Bebo, what a throwback
that one in a while.
Yeah. And so I think social media platforms sort of fear that if they don't stay up with the trends or what is popular, then they will get left behind. And do you think that's probably the reasoning for it?
I think that's part of the reason. I actually think it's more tactical warfare. You know, there's a new kid on the block, like with the likes of Clubhouse. I think they had two main like selling points. One of them being the fact that it was this exclusive club that you could get into if you got an invite. The other selling point being the fact that it was brand new. It was this new shiny thing. You take that newness away by copying them.
Yeah.
And then what have you got there? You've got just all that it's got is this exclusivity, which runs its course eventually anyway.
And we talked about that on the last show, didn't we? About why, well, I did certainly anyway, why I prefer Spaces over Clubhouse. And Clubhouse really never pulled the trigger, in my opinion, to make that platform accessible. It took them almost a year after to get onto the Android devices. Still quite complicated to get involved with Clubhouse as well. And there is more of an elitist, that's a topic for another time, but there is more of an elitist kind of audience on Clubhouse, where you've got a lot of investors, you've got a lot of top business people using that platform, whereas Twitter Spaces is definitely more of a general chit chat, because that's the kind of audience that Twitter has. But like, let's not forget, you know, we're talking about things like trying to beat competitors. Twitter, a few years ago, with a huge power move, when they bought out Vine, and everyone was thinking what are they going to do with it, and they just killed the platform. So it's very interesting to see. This is almost juxtaposed to that now, because instead of Facebook or Twitter saying, should we buy Clubhouse? They're like, let's just make our own Clubhouse. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting.
Just sort of phased them out, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's no surprise that exclusive nature of Clubhouse wasn't copied across the board. I think you can see what's successful by what is then copied, and that exclusivity was something that I think obviously platforms must have looked at and then decided to leave behind. Because I think it's now, as we've said before on the podcast, becoming a hindrance very quickly for Clubhouse. But I think the problem is that we're starting to see features being introduced across platform. And Ryan, you just posted your very first fleet.
Yep.
It's not, to be honest with you, it's an update that when it came out, I sort of looked at and went, why? Like, what? I've never been on Twitter and thought, I need stories for this platform. I quite enjoyed the differentiation. I mean, people use them. I've used them on a handful of occasions. I don't really think they provide too much more to the platform. And I think, unfortunately, now you're starting to see features come out on platforms whereby they're just fearful of not perhaps being on that trend. And Fleets is an example where I don't really feel it contributed. And actually, I think I felt quite negatively towards Twitter when they brought that out, because it's just that lack of creativity. And you like, what did it bring?
My only thing that I will defend Fleets with, and trust me, I'm not going to go to bat for them, but one thing that is really smart about Fleets is obviously when you upload a fleet, it will bring your profile to the top of a page. So let's just say you're a general business or a content creator, and you know, maybe you're not that active, or maybe you know, you're not people's first preference to go and check the profile. When they see your fleet and they click the fleet, and then they go, oh, let me go look at their page. That's like the one positive side to that. It's almost like a free boost to get your profile to the front of people. And I don't think enough businesses use that really. But besides that, I mean, is anyone creating content specifically for fleets? I'm sure there's some businesses, but if we're talking about resources, if you've got limited resources, I'd certainly advise against it.
A little factoid on Fleets, actually, guys. So I think most people think that they're a play on tweets, but Fleets was actually named so because they're meant for fleeting thoughts, which I found quite interesting. So they were brought in. I think it was.
Did you think it was like a play on?
I thought it was just a play on tweets, just to sort of like get back. When I was researching them, I found out that they were introduced. I think especially during sort of the American elections. the presidential elections last time out, whereby they wanted people to be able to contribute to debates. And this wasn't just in politics, this was a sort of with any topic, whereby they wanted people to be able to contribute without fear that whatever that they said would be stuck around forever. So, I think if we bring it back to a sporting sense, me and Andreas both predicting that France were going to win the Euros. Whereas if we tweeted that would probably come back to haunt us at some point. Whereas if we post it as a fleeting thought, it disappears after a set amount of time, that people can still contribute to debate without fear that they're going to get stung by an opinion which turned out to be incorrect further down the line. So in that sense, I actually think that's a pretty good idea.
That's a lot more forgiving on Twitter's part.
That's the perfect word for it.
If I'm going to give any platform the least amount of stick, it's going to be Twitter. Over the last 8 to 10 months, I feel that they've done the best job to develop their platform, not just by copying people. Like we've talked before, haven't we, about the new subscriptions feature. We've talked about how, especially because of the election, how they changed the way people can get involved in certain conversations, creating more easily accessible threads, being able to say who can comment and reply to certain tweets. I think the platform in general has done a great job. Their stock's up, they're doing good work. But like we're saying, there are still elements that Twitter are doing, which is a copycat. But I guess to kind of throw that back to you guys, if everyone is going to copy each other, what does the future hold for social media?
Surely there's just going to be one big social platform.
The Disney of the social media world.
One social platform to rule them all.
It's going to be really. At this point, it feels like you've gone down this road so far. There's no real turning back. I can't see. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's no differentiation between the platforms. Platforms are still bringing out really cool new features. They're doing it every month, and there's a really handy article which you can check out on the Uniform pages. 5 things that where we bring you mostly new and innovative changes that are coming to social media, so you guys don't have to worry about them. Check that one out. And so I should caveat with the general rule that, there's still loads of new and exciting coming up, but these majority features, these main things that are coming in altering platforms, that they are stolen. And I think we've come so far. It's like, I can't see it changing now. I think that sort of general innovation within the industry has perhaps been lost a little bit. Do you think?
Well, look, I guess we don't know the answer to that unless we had an inside man or woman at these places to know what they're working on, because I'm sure they're working on some great things. And you have to remember, to be a copycat, someone has to do something first. So we're not saying that social media is completely void of creativity, because there is a strong element of it there. But it is now to the point where we're saying one person does one thing and the next person copies, and that's what it is. It's that Spider-Man meme, isn't it? Looking at each other like this. So I really don't know what the future holds, but I think it's definitely going to be an interesting one to look at.
Yeah, for sure. So guys, which side of the Clone Wars do you sit on? Are you a fan of things becoming a bit more general, a bit more accessible across the platforms where things feel a bit more familiar? Or did you like things as they were, where you go on a different platform for a very different specific reason? Let us know in the comments. Or if you are a fan of this new format where social media platforms tend to be copying each other, which platform, as Andreas said with Twitter, do you think is doing its best? Let us know. So guys, the next topic, again, is sort of a copycat theme, but a little bit different this time, because we saw Instagram, I think it's currently in beta, bring out the ability for you to upload to your Instagram feed through desktop. And whilst they're very, very, very late to this party, I mean, I think they're the last major platform to be able to provide this function. And I think it's a sort of conversation in itself as to why it's taken them this long. But the conversation I want to bring to you guys is social media for desktop still alive? Is it, because there are a lot of statistics which will tell you that everything...
Varying statistics as well.
Which will tell you that perhaps mobile is the way to go for social media platforms. I mean, it's now overwhelmingly the vast majority of web traffic generally across the globe is from mobile. It's up to 46% now for desktop. I mean, that's actually down from 97% just 10 years ago. So believe it or not, just 10 years ago, 3% of all global web traffic was from mobile. The vast majority was from desktop. We've seen that drop to 46% now, as I've said. But what's interesting is, whilst I think Statista was saying that 81% of Facebook traffic from within 2020 came just from accounts that use mobile. So they didn't use desktop to use Facebook at all. It was just mobile. That would all tell you that mobile is the way to go, that's the future of social media, is platforms formatting things to be suitable for mobile devices. However, if you look at the aggregate amount of time per device that is spent on a platform, it's overwhelmingly in favor of desktop, because I think it's still the most comfortable device to use when you're looking at something, whether you're using it for entertainment purposes, whether you're watching something, or whether you're researching. If you're going to be using social media for, say, longer than 20 minutes,
probably less than that. Yeah.
Desktop is the way to go. And so it's an interesting conversation whereby I think the social media industry is sort of lining itself up for a future on mobile. But should that be the case, do you think? Do you think there's still a case for desktop in the social media world?
I think so, yeah, because we do most of our work on our desktops, and like it's where we tend to store our photos, like off our phone sometimes. Like I think people still do that, like, you know, for the old cloud and whatnot. And I think it's just like our base, isn't it? Sometimes we return to our desktop, and
yeah, I think definitely for creators,
yeah,
we'll be really happy to see the desktop side of social media stick around, because that is right. I mean, for us as an industry, that's where we do the vast majority of the work. But for your average Joe social media user, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the whole appeal for it for mobile devices is the fact that it's like we take our phones with us everywhere. No matter where we go, we're able to just relay our lives instantly, aren't we, through our phones? Mm-hmm. And that's probably the main selling point when it comes to social media. It's about saying what you're doing now, what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a very good point, actually. I suppose mobile does lend it to that instant nature of social media, which we're sort of seeing. But
if you wanted to be more premeditated about it, then I'd say, yeah, desktop.
Definitely. That was actually going to be my exact point, is that there is still definitely that case there. And I was sort of wondering that social media generally seems to be posturing itself. I mean, we were just talking about that 1080 by 1920 platforms like Snapchat and TikTok and Reels and Shorts and Spotlight, and it goes on and on and on. And do you think, I mean, you can use TikTok on desktop. You can now use, as I was saying, Instagram on desktop, but they don't really feel too aligned. It feels a bit sort of clumsy. It doesn't feel aligned to that sort of medium, does it?
Let's think of it this way, okay? Facebook started as a desktop app, as the original social media platform, whereas platforms like TikTok originate from mobile. So that, first of all, that shows the trend change in the industry. But secondly, it shows, just like Clubhouse, for example, these apps are supposed to be consumed via the mobile, and Instagram is exactly the same. That's what Instagram was born out of. It was a mobile application. And that's why Facebook brought it out. They had a great desktop application in Facebook, which, if you look at the statistics of who uses Facebook, which is generally older people who most likely don't have the latest smartphones and are more comfortable with using desktops or laptops, whatever they use, versus something like an Instagram, which does skew younger with the demo, and TikTok, which definitely skews younger. You know, there is a lot of trend and data change, which does explain why that is the case. But also, you have to remember that the reason desktop usage is up is because of COVID. And it's because more people now are at home on their computers doing their work, or wherever they are, and...
Or doing not a lot, really.
Or
not
not doing anything, actually. My friend was on furlough for like a whole year, and I said, what did you do? He goes, just played PlayStation. I'm like, what, for a whole year? Okay, great.
We've all been there, I think.
He was saying, actually, this is a complete digression, but he was like, I need to get into shape. I was like, you've had a whole year off and you didn't get into shape, yeah, and now you want to get into shape. But anyway,
I'm laughing, but, you know.
Again,
it's like, hey,
we've all
look,
been there.
if you didn't do it then, you ain't doing it now. But like we've all been on our computers a lot more, and obviously as a business we're generally on our desktops more anyway because that's where we do our work from. But there are other people who may have been out in the field a lot more who are now at home on Zoom calls and using the desktop computer a lot more. So again, that does also impact the data. But I think it is really interesting to see, like you say, Instagram's pretty much the last original platform that has decided to say you can now natively on the website upload content. Now they've allowed IGTV uploads for pretty much since the start of IGTV. So that's been available, but actual posts haven't, and stories still aren't available to upload. But if you've used platforms such as Creator Studio or other platforms like Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, they're obviously social media tools for businesses like us. They've given companies the ability to post from a desktop to Instagram. So it has existed. It's not like an amazing new tool, but it's brand new for native Instagram, which, as you're saying, it's very interesting that they finally decided to pull the trigger on that. I think it was only about a year ago now that you could actually start reading and replying to messages from Instagram desktop. So this is kind of the final stage, and maybe we'll also get story uploads and reel uploads from desktop as well.
I think, guys, I love the dynamic we have on this podcast, right? Because we've got Andreas, who is an absolute vet of social media. He's been in the game for a long, long time. And then on the other hand, we have Ryan, who is really starting to, since he joined Uniform, really starting to test his toes in the water of social media. He downloaded TikTok for the first time. You were on fire. Literally, before we started recording this podcast, you posted a fleet and a TikTok in the space of 30 seconds. It was crazy.
It's very, very instant, wasn't it?
You strike me, mate. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I could not believe it. And you strike me as something of a desktop aficionado.
Yeah, well, I remember trying to post on a Instagram from the desktop and being like, where's that function at?
So what you're saying is the sole reason that they've brought out this feature is so Ryan Long can post on his Instagram.
Finally do it.
You're not having it, are you, mate? None of this mobile nonsense. But no, I think that's something still to be said, mate. I think whilst these platforms are still so fresh and so new, I think a lot of people, perhaps those older audiences that you were talking about, Facebook, are going to take a little longer. Guys, I don't know how long it's going to be before I see my mom and dad on TikTok. I think a very, very long time. And so that wider migration to these new platforms is probably going to take a little bit longer. And do you think that transition would perhaps be helped if they made the desktop equivalents perhaps a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more accessible, a little bit more a little bit less clunky, actually? Well,
like we're saying, the applications which were born as mobile, such as Instagram and TikTok, if you go to the desktop website, is a lot clunkier because it's done in a certain way to actually, let's be honest, trade secret, push you to mobile. Will they have to change that? Personally, I don't think so. I don't think TikTok will ever be completely immersive as a desktop web page, but who knows, they might surprise us. But it's done in a way to push people to mobile because that's where the majority of the traffic is. That's where the application is perfectly designed. So I'm really not sure, actually, with that question.
Guys, as is the theme, when we don't know the answer to a question, we put it to you guys. Let us know your thoughts on this one. Are you team desktop, team mobile? Where do you lie on that spectrum? Let us know in the comments or tweet us at Uniform Brand. And we'll love to have a conversation, particularly Ryan, who's now honestly a social media whiz. He could tell you everything and anything about these new mobile platforms. So he's the man to get out for this one. So guys, the final dive into this week's social jar. Let's get into that emotional time of the week. One last topic, but it's a good one. We're going to stick with TikTok for this one. And it's going to be something of a review, I suppose, because it's been about a year or so since TikTok launched their business campaign, Don't Make Ads, Make TikToks, which is a very, very bold sort of tagline for that strategy, isn't it? But on the whole, I think we've seen brands align themselves pretty well to TikTok. And what is interesting...
Brands, as we'll get into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think on the whole, TikTok has been really good because we do it ourselves with some of our clients. convey a personality on TikTok that's a bit more fun, a bit more playful, that otherwise I don't think you see on like a Facebook or a Twitter, or definitely not on like a LinkedIn. So I think in that sense, it's been good because you see platforms have a little bit more fun, be a bit more creative. And I think that's actually something I would like to see sort of unveiled a little bit more across the board. But I think TikTok's been good for that. They brought out a whole bunch of analytics tools, which guys that are on TikTok business, any brands or companies, can then use to sort of track and measure their campaigns. So that's been really good. But TikTok has been something of a real boost for a lot of brands and a lot of businesses, because you see trending hashtags like hashtag TikTok made me buy it, which is a sort of trend where TikTok users would find their best Amazon finds.
Go on.
Yeah, I haven't actually. You see a lot of cool stuff, particularly, I mean, like, I'm on food TikTok, right?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on food TikTok.
It's the best. I'd advise, like, anyone watching, get out there and like as many food TikToks as you can, because you'll have a great time. And you see loads of different appliances for the kitchen and stuff like that look like a dream. Haven't bought any yet, but maybe, guys, that's what I'll start doing. The photo frame, which we've forgotten to update this week, maybe that'll go, and we'll just have a weekly TikTok. Oh, Eric's gone.
That's it. Destroy the set. Destroy the set.
A weekly TikTok find from Amazon instead. But we're seeing, and this was the point for this sort of inverted commas there, that brands are making covert TikTok accounts. And you see it a lot, again, in food, and particularly in fast food restaurants, where there's this sort of general sort of negative feeling that it's rushed, it's not very hygienic, you know, the processes to make food are great, maybe the staff aren't too happy with their own. Yeah. And you get these sort of like accounts where it's like this guy at McDonald's is like, hi, I work at McDonald's, I think it's great, here's how we make Big Macs. And it's this really fun, really organic process where this guy makes a Big Mac, wraps it up really nicely and gives it to a real happy customer. But it's not like at McDonald's, it's at like Joe Blogs or whatever. Yeah. And that's interesting, isn't it?
Let me tell you this right now. If you work for McDonald's, Starbucks, Pepperidge Farm, whoever the hell you work for, you really think if they don't want you to make content at work, they're going to allow you to do it? Of course they're not. Are you going to seriously say to me like, oh yeah, Stacey or Mikey, whoever's, you know, back in the kitchen, like you're saying, making a Big Mac, you really think McDonald's doesn't know about that and they just turn in a blind eye? Of course not. It's all strategic. It's all part of the plan, because people are buying into brands less because it feels less organic. And that's why when you've got an individual who's promoting something, it doesn't feel like they're actually promoting it. It just feels like they're creating content. So there's a sandwich artist on TikTok. I believe his family owns a Subway, but it's not branded as a Subway account. It's just, he's like, send me in your favorite Subway orders and I'll make them on TikTok. And I'm thinking like, how is it not obvious to you all that this is like clearly a campaign to make you maybe not necessarily go to that specific Subway, but want to eat a Subway sandwich. And it's the same for McDonald's. And there's a lot of home businesses as well that do a really good job at this. And to me, it's very evident. But I think what we're trying to say, Dan, is that to the general consumer, they might not immediately click like that, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I mean, it's caught me a few times. I've got to say, I was feeling a little bit bad. Where you're like, how is no one realizing this? And I'm saying like, I didn't realize. So it does take you a sort of a little while to get used to it. But that's sort of where you see a Big Mac on your feed, and then you suddenly go, oh my God, I want a Big Mac. I mean, I think it happened to you the other day, didn't it? Right, where you were like, yeah. We ran a Burger King. This is, I don't know if he told you this. This is like, we ran a Burger King article on the website. You can go check it out. It's on a really interesting partnership they had with Stevenage FC. But Ryan, obviously our in-house graphic designer, was making the swipe along and the graphics for that article, and spent so much time. Yeah, this is where it gets even better, looking at Burger King, that you decided, damn, I really want a Burger King. But
it worked.
Burger King was too far away, so we just got a McDonald's instead.
A burger's a burger at the end of the day.
But I'd love to know the sort of are these guys getting paid for making this content, because they're doing it on behalf of the platform, and it's sort of a win-win for that brand, because they're like, so it doesn't get seen as an ad. People aren't just going to like, you know, because I think there's still a little bit to be worked on in terms of integrating ads into TikTok. I think they still feel very bit sort of in your face. They're very easy. It's just literally that one scroll and you're past it there. I think there's a little bit to be said for how well they can integrate ads into TikTok. But this feels a little bit more natural. It's a win-win, as I said, for the brand, because they get seen as this really sort of happy-go-lucky, whether you're like, yeah, you can come into our kitchens, make content on your own for people that haven't quite clocked that it's that sort of...
It's a face, isn't it, as well?
It's like commission to... And so it gives the company a sort of, a really sort of... I mean, brands must be absolutely loving this because for them, there's no flaw. And I correct me if I'm mistaken, I think they're actually, TikTok and stuff are trying to clamp down on this because it is a way of getting ads into TikTok without going through the traditional means where, you sort of have to liaise with them. And
by law, you have to use at least a hashtag that says ad or specify it's an ad. There was a huge lawsuit that involved YouTubers probably about 8 to 10 years ago. It was absolutely massive, which really changed the landscape when it came to advertising products and kind of, as we're saying, people disguising, hey, like, check out this chocolate company. They're so amazing. I love it. Like disguising it as organic, like, hey, I just like this chocolate and I'm showing it you, when in fact they were getting sent tons and tons of free products and being asked, hey, it would be really nice if, I don't know, you did a YouTube video with a chocolate, and it's the exact same thing. And actually very recently, the UK government have been clamping down on it, especially related to like influences from like Towie and Geordie Shore, because they've been told actually time and time again, listen, we know what you're doing, stop. You need to be transparent with your audience. It's very dangerous as well, especially when they're advertising products that they have never used in their life. And I've worked with some and I've seen this happen. Trust me, there are a bunch of celebrities out there who are getting told and getting paid to advertise something, and they pretend that they use the face cream and they do this. They don't. And that's why it's so dangerous, because these unknown products are being advertised to millions of impressionable people, young people around the world who are like, wow, well, my favorite Towie character loves that, so I'm going to do it. So it's genuinely a very big problem, like this ad thing. So when we spin it backwards and we look at actually McDonald's, instead of paying whatever, 100,000, 200,000 to run a TikTok campaign where it's just, they do something cool with a Big Mac maybe, asking their employees or allowing their employees to just make content at McDonald's. There's so many different ways to do it. There's a girl I see on TikTok where every break time she's just talking to the camera while she eats some mozzarella dippers or whatever it is. Or as you say, Dan, there's ones actually showing the kitchen process. So it's very sneaky. I personally, I'm not against it because it's a business tactic. The International Equestrian Federation, to do with horse riding, horse racing, their TikTok account is actually not branded as the federation name. It's branded like a general, like a horse fan club page. And they've seen incredible growth through that because, again, it seems more organic. It doesn't look like it's a brand forcing their content down your throat. And yeah, I completely agree. It's very interesting. It's potentially dangerous if not handled correctly. But it does show our consumer habits, doesn't it? That if McDonald's tell us to buy a Big Mac, like just the same when you're walking down the street and you see the big sign that says Big Tasty back at McDonald's, you're like, yeah. But then if your mate goes to you, hey, just Big Tasty's back. Just had one. They're so good, aren't they? I'm like, I've not had a Big Tasty in ages. Can't wait to have one. It's just, we're more impressionable with when someone we know or another human says something to us.
I think there is a real resistance to ads on social media as well. And this comes up in search engines as well. I mean, I will go through literally anything in my power to not click on the first two links that say sponsored ad. I'm not doing it. I want to do it myself. I'm not having, which sort of is a bit pointless because I suppose I do it in most of it. And like it's the same on TikTok, same on Instagram, same on Snapchat, whereby you see an ad come up, you're like, no, close it. Like, no, I'm not. I'm better than that.
I'm the same. I'm so hostile towards ads.
I suppose those sort of new advertising methods are becoming increasingly popular. I mean, we're seeing it with these sort of covert styles and stuff like that. I mean, Ryan, if you don't pull your phone out after we've done this podcast and you haven't blown up on TikTok after that masterpiece that you just created, I don't know what it takes anymore. I really don't. But these sort of the traditional advertising methods that we've seen sort of come around since the 50s, the 40s and stuff like that, you print, TV, radio. When you see ads like this become so successful, I mean, and when they're becoming so clever and so intertwined with what we consider normal social media. I mean, how long have traditional advertising methods got before we see these sort of methods just become so widespread? Because I think that surely the reach that you get on a TikTok ad or an Instagram ad or a Twitter ad is so much greater than what you get if you get sort of a spread in the paper or something like that.
Well, Ryan's got a lot of experience in that with his no, seriously though, with your graphic design work, you've done a lot of old school. Well, I shouldn't call it old school, but old school banner campaigns, like big billboard campaigns, haven't you?
Yeah, and I went through the usual routes of education. You know what I mean when it comes to learning graphic design, and I don't think we were ever educated on like social media really, on how to like create work for that format. It was always the old school, as you say.
Yeah. I suppose you as a graphic designer, do you get more pride seeing your work in physical format? So yesterday we were doing some stuff down here with some t-shirts where you'd put a client sort of designed a logo for a client and seen it on the t-shirt. Do you get more pride seeing that sort of stuff than you do when you sort of see a graphic go up on social? I suppose as a graphic designer, seeing your work blown up on a massive billboard, that must still feel pretty cool as a personal achievement sort of thing.
Yeah, no matter what, like if you see your work just manifest in the real world, people interacting with it, it's just a great feeling. But like what's interesting is with social, you can see it, like you see how many likes you're getting. And it's
that's a good point.
There's a way of measuring how successful you've been with the design. Yeah,
I think it's very interesting, and these sort of covert sort of TikTok accounts, especially when it is a little dangerous. You were saying like when they're generally in fast food. I mean, if it's for like vegan kitchens and stuff like that, maybe it's a little bit different. But when you're sort of getting this guy making like there's this guy I see on TikTok, and Andreas, if you're on through TikTok, you might have seen it, and he works in a chip shop. And it's people just send him in stuff to batter, and he just batters it and eats it. And like, God, this sounds like the most like low IQ content, but I really enjoy it. This guy would be like, oh yeah, just deep fry like.
What happens to a wallet when you deep fry it?
Exactly that. This guy just take a bite.
This started a trend. The first thing he did, I think, that really blew up was a chip butty battered, and people were like, wow, this blew my mind. And you started seeing other chip shops. I know there's a few in Manchester that were actually selling that because of TikTok. And like that's the power that TikTok has in a consumer culture. And I mean, for him, again, he's not promoting his chip shop. He's just making content like, hey, batter this. But he battered a pizza, he battered a doner kebab. He's done some mad stuff, donuts, Colin the Caterpillar. Don't know how that worked. But, that trend of the chip butty, there's loads of other accounts like, oh, now we're going to deep fry a chip butty. And it was, that's probably another wormhole. Do you call it butty or bap? Or
we haven't got time.
We haven't got time for that.
I came to Manchester and it's a balm. I was like, what is this?
Muffin?
Yeah.
Muffin. Is that what you call it around here? Muffins?
Well, muffin's one of them, yeah.
That's the only Manchester name.
Is it a muffin? Anyway, we probably shouldn't get on
We digress.
Yeah, guys, I mean... So I think the only one of us here that's really confessed to being influenced by sort of social media, and even then it wasn't really, was Ryan and his Burger King incident, which he then went and bought a McDonald's. So I mean, that absolutely nailed
There's
that
just not as many Burger Kings.
Yeah, true. But guys, if you've bought anything based on something you see maybe on TikTok or on Instagram or on Snapchat, or maybe put up to buy an influencer, let us know. We'd be really interested to see what you've been sort of tempted into buying based on what you've seen on social media. I think we're perhaps a little bit lacking in that department. Maybe it's something we're trying to improve on.
And it's not just buying either. Like the other day I saw locations is a really big thing on TikTok as well, like going to restaurants or going to really cool spots, and they become known as TikTok spots because there's just people flocking to it because they've seen it on TikTok. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have either been experienced with a location or maybe a product that they've seen on TikTok and they've gone and done or bought themselves.
I've actually got, just before we round off this segment, I went to London at the back end of last year, and this is related, don't worry. I went to London at the back end of last year, and my mum bought me she's one of these, she bought me like a hat and gloves and like a scarf to take and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, is this for the villa, yeah?
Yeah, at the grand old age of 22, my mum's still doing other stuff, and she bought me a book, and it was like London's top 100 Instagrammable cafes.
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. So guys, if you've been to an Instagrammable cafe, we'd love to hear about that one as well. So yeah, let us know. So guys, again, another week with an empty social jar. Another episode, 3 episodes in. We're getting a roll, hopefully.
An empty frame.
yeah, the set is probably going to take a little bit of a change next week, isn't it? We're expecting some new stuff, maybe.
Yeah, there will be a new table at least, not a new set. We're in the process of developing our set, working with the great.
Quite literally, watch this space, right?
Yeah, watch this space, indeed. Working with the great team at Infinity Studios to develop our studio that we work in together. So I'm really excited to see how that manifests over the coming months. But yeah, new desk next time. We'll be facing each other. It'll be a little bit easier. But one thing will be certain is that the social media chatter will be just as good on episode 4.
Oh, 100%. Ryan, we'll make sure to keep the users updated with your continuing perilous journey into the murky, uncharted waters of social media. Absolutely nailed it, mate. I'm proud of you. So, guys, there's loads to stay tuned to here at the Social Job Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode or indeed any of the other ones, hit the bell button if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, drop a like, let us know in the comments what you thought, or if you're watching on any other you can't be watching if you're listening, so I should say, on any other podcast platform, subscribe to make sure that you never miss an episode, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.